We all know that. We know the daunting development challenges that Nigeria faces. Just think of how much you need to meet the social development goals. Think of how much you need to solve your problems, our problems of unemployment, of poverty. 94 million people, I think, cash poor. 140 million people, multidimensional poor. Think of how much you need to fix our health and education systems. For fixing infrastructure in this country was about 3 trillion years. And how much will that translate to? 100 billion. How much you spend every year as a budget? $30 billion and $4 billion. So for the next 30 years. So obviously Nigeria, the long term that is sustainable. So the question is that kind of system. Is it possible for us to? I think we have the capacity to be able to do this. We need to do that. It takes us 3 things. Look at the it's more mature than the academic system in Reno, local government, or maybe the local government. And that will determine will be policy. Your policy stance. That will determine your macroeconomic. You can use policy to affect the economic structure. So for instance, some of the activities that you do, what you have built around Bebeji town would obviously influence the economic system, the fiscal system in that place. So the economic structure changes. The economy produces goods and services. The government facilitates the production of goods and services in the economy. And the government expects to earn something from that production. So the revenue it earns, it's what comes with it. So you measure the size of the fiscal system by looking at the revenue it earns from the production of goods and services in the system, which is the GDP. So what Nigeria earns is that. And then about 42% dependence on the economy, on the oil sector, has the non-oil sector. Is that a transformation, and will it gladden our hearts that we are going to have a more sustainable fiscal system of the fiscal system? And the final one, I'm sure Honorable Chairman had met also these problems as the Chairman of the Appropriation Committee. When we speak about the fiscal system, the MDS bring their proposals is how much income, how much money you will add to them, and not about how they are going to utilize that money in operating the fiscal system. A number of questions. Is the government too big? Are we spending so much on recurrent expenses rather than on capital expenses? Are we spending too much money on state-run enterprises without results? You know, are we happy with our procurement system? Now, those are the things that also affect the fiscal system. And finally, many countries in the world, especially oil exporting countries, have the sovereign wealth funds. It's good to have a sovereign wealth fund. We don't have in this country. We have one with a seed capital of about $1 billion. In other places, they have trillions and so on. And you need that for 3 things. 2, I want to support my budget. I don't want the budget to always fluctuate. And 3, I want to, just be able to, for the rainy day, save money for the rainy day. Now, if we had that kind of system, we had them operated on 5%. We'll come together just before election. The governors will put pressure on the president. Please, share this we want to do. So you need to have the lack of that, the absence of your budget because your revenue is dwarfed by the expenditure. So you have to produce a budget deficit, and that's what we have been doing since 2015. And how do you finance the deficit? You go to the market to borrow money. You pay more to service your debt in principal and interest rate in the next budget cycle. And then this continues. And this is what has happened for many years. We can see from 2015, revenue in expenditure in blue, dwarfs revenue in red, and then the deficit is the one in green. That we have always run a deficit from 2015 until 2000. And then our debt burden has increased over time. I estimated that between 2020, the narrowness of that fiscal system, and also, the way that we finance our deficit. So, this shows us the interest payments on debts that have, that have always threatened our fiscal viability. At a stage, we spent over 100% of the revenues that we earned in order to do so. And revenue utilization. That the fiscal system is influenced by their sophistication, is influenced by their level of efficiency. That unless you have revenue generation, so you have to pay attention to governance reforms. The third one is that you have to pay attention to, you must optimize the potentials of the existing taxes that you have. I will show you that. So for this one, it's not only reforming the public sector, but also other things that you do. MDAs that have rate of voluntary compliance. Compliance, generally nobody wants to pay tax. You have to on that kind of thing. And how do you do that? Always the case. You have to broaden the tax net. I'm always cautious in asking for increases in taxes, except for what we call the sin goods, beer and gambling and cigarettes, and for obvious reasons. But there is always room for you to expand the tax net by covering more and using technology and using dialogue and so on and so forth. Expenditure would be. But it's important for us to have that as a formal program. 5 years. So we are going to reduce, we are going to eliminate all the deficit, and this is how we are going to go about it. Obviously, to education and so on and so on. But you have to have this formula. You have to privatize them. Should we concession some of those for other things? So that is the expenditure side. Once you do the revenue side, you must also. This is also a reality. We know in studies that we did faster than public revenues, and especially in developing countries where you have bigger than last year's budget, and that's because the expectations of people change, especially from you know that you can't have all the revenues that you require. Expectations, and you must meet those expectations. I'm sure the chairman will be able, not only state budget, but his office and roads and hospitals and whatever, social and economic infrastructure. And of course, for them to be able to recoup and get their money back. That you cannot rely on the conventional budgetary system for you to be able to build that kind of resilient and stable fiscal system. You have to pay a lot of attention to your debt. Of course, you continue to borrow. The need to borrow will be lessened if you have the Nigeria Fund, but you also need to borrow, but borrow only when you need to. And then borrow to ensure that you are going to use it for something that can pay back. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we have to give him another big round of applause. He really did economize the time.